The lights above the fighting pit burned hot and white, casting harsh shadows across the blood-stained floor. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, their voices rising in a wave of anticipation and greed. They came from dozens of worlds across the Vulthar Empire, united only by their thirst for violence and a chance to win credits on the right bet. J-1 stood in the preparation cell, his hands wrapped in simple cloth bindings. 3 months ago, he had been a cargo pilot hauling medical supplies to frontier colonies. Now he was property of the Empire. Another fighter thrown into the pits for the entertainment of creatures who saw him as nothing more than weak flesh, waiting to be torn apart. The cell door opened with a grinding screech. A guard stood there, tall and armored, with skin like rough stone and eyes that glowed faintly yellow. "Move, human. Your time has come." J1 walked forward without a word. He had learned quickly that talking to the guards was pointless. They did not care about his protests or his rights. In the Empire, might made right, and he had no might to speak of. The tunnel leading to the arena was dark and cold. He could hear the crowd growing louder with each step. They were chanting something in a language he did not fully understand, but he caught the meaning well enough. They wanted blood. They always wanted blood. High above the arena, in a private viewing booth reserved for military officers, Commander Hannah sat with her arms crossed. Her silver scales caught the light as she shifted in her seat, 2 of her 4 hands resting on the armrests, while the other 2 remained folded across her chest. She was tall even by Vulthar standards, built for war from birth. Her species had conquered 70 star systems through strength and discipline, and she embodied both. "Another boring evening," muttered the officer beside her, a younger warrior named Vorik. "These fights have lost their appeal. The prisoners die too quickly now." Hannah said nothing. She came to the fights because it was expected of her rank, not because she enjoyed watching desperate beings kill each other for the amusement of the crowd. Still, duty was duty, and she had never shirked her responsibilities. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena, amplified by speakers embedded in the walls. "Citizens of the Empire, tonight we have a special treat. A human, captured from the frontier, will face Krull the Breaker in unarmed combat." The crowd roared its approval. Hannah's eyes narrowed slightly. A human? She had seen humans before, during her campaigns on the Outer Rim. They were rare in this part of the galaxy, and universally dismissed as fragile. Their worlds had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. By Empire standards, they were barely civilized. The gates opened on opposite sides of the arena. From the left emerged Krull, a massive Krath warrior standing nearly 3 meters tall. His exoskeleton gleamed under the lights, and his 4 arms ended in natural bone blades, sharp enough to cut through steel. He had killed 17 opponents in the pits, without taking a single serious wound. From the right gate came J1. The crowd's roar turned to laughter. The human looked pathetic next to Krull. He was barely 2 meters tall, with soft skin and no natural weapons. His body showed signs of previous fights, scars and bruises covering his arms and torso. He wore only simple pants and those cloth wrappings on his hands. The betting screens flashed to life. 50-1 odds against the human. Some spectators did not even bother betting. This would be over in seconds. Hannah leaned forward slightly, studying the human. There was something in the way he moved, the way he kept his eyes on Krull without flinching. He was afraid. She could see that. But he was not paralyzed by it. The signal bell rang. Krull charged immediately, closing the distance with frightening speed. His bladed arms swept toward J1's head, aiming to end the fight with a single strike. J1 dropped low, rolling under the attack. Krull's blades whistled through empty air. The human came up running, putting distance between himself and his opponent. The crowd booed. They wanted to see blood, not running. Krull turned and charged again. This time, J1 dodged to the side at the last moment, causing the larger fighter to stumble slightly. The human kicked out, striking the back of Krull's leg joint. It was not a powerful blow, but it landed on a weak point in the exoskeleton. Hana's secondary eyes widened slightly. The human knew anatomy. He was targeting joints and gaps. For 10 minutes, the fight continued in this pattern. Krull attacked with overwhelming force, and J1 evaded, dodged, and struck back at weak points whenever he could. Each of the human strikes was calculated, aimed at places where Krull's natural armor was thin or absent. None of the blows did serious damage individually, but they accumulated. Krull grew frustrated. He began swinging wildly, expending energy with each massive attack. J1 continued to evade, his breathing heavy but controlled. He was getting tired. Hana could see that, but he refused to slow down. The crowd's laughter had stopped. They watched in confusion as the fight dragged on. This was not how it was supposed to go. The human should have been dead within the first minute. Krull lunged forward with all 4 arms extended, trying to grab J1 and crush him. The human waited until the last possible moment, then dropped and rolled between Krull's legs. As he passed underneath, he drove his elbow upward into the soft underside of Krull's thorax. The craft. Warrior made a sound like grinding metal and stumbled forward. J1 was already on his feet. He jumped onto Krull's back and wrapped his arm around the warrior's thick neck, his legs locking around the torso. Krull thrashed violently, slamming backward into the arena wall, trying to crush the human. J1 held on. His face was pressed against Krull's exoskeleton, and Hana could see blood running down his forehead where the rough surface cut into him. But he did not let go. The thrashing became weaker. Krull's movements grew sluggish. The accumulated damage from a dozen precise strikes, combined with exhaustion and now oxygen deprivation, was finally taking its toll down with a final shudder. Krull collapsed forward onto the arena floor. J1 rolled clear just before the massive body hit the ground. He staggered to his feet, swaying slightly. Blood ran from cuts on his face, arms, and chest. His breathing was ragged, but he was standing. The arena fell silent. For a long moment, nobody moved or spoke. Then the announcer's voice crackled to life, uncertain and confused. The human wins. Chaos erupted. Some in the crowd cheered. Others shouted in anger, having lost fortunes on what should have been a certain bet. Fights broke out in the stands between creditors and debtors. Hana stood slowly from her seat. Her eyes never left the human as guards entered the arena to drag him back to the cells. He had won not through superior strength or weapons, but through something else. Through refusal to give up. Through adaptation and strategy. Through sheer, stubborn will. Commander? Vorik asked, confused by her sudden movement. Where are you going? Hana did not answer. She was already walking toward the exit of the viewing booth, her mind made up. The Empire had ancient laws, traditions from the old wars when warriors could claim defeated enemies who showed exceptional courage. The Calveth. The right of claiming. That human had shown something she had rarely seen even among her own kind. He had shown that fragility was not the same as weakness. That being outmatched was not the same as being defeated. She would invoke the Calveth. She would claim the human for herself, and though she did not yet know it, that decision would change everything. The medical station smelled of chemicals and burnt flesh. J1 lay on a metal table while a medical drone worked on his injuries, its mechanical arms moving with precise efficiency. The cuts on his face and chest were being sealed with synthetic tissue, and the bruises covering his ribs were being treated with regeneration gel. He stared at the ceiling, trying not to think about the fight. trying not to remember the moment when Krawl's blade had come within centimeters of his throat. He had survived another day, but there would be another fight tomorrow, and another the day after that. Eventually, his luck would run out. The door opened with a hiss. J1 turned his head and saw her. Commander Hana stood in the doorway, her forearms held in a formal posture that he had learned meant military authority. She was even more imposing up close. Her silver scales seemed to glow faintly in the harsh medical lights, and her eyes, all four of them, focused on him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You are J1, she said. It was not a question. "That's right," he replied, his voice rough from shouting during the fight. Come to get a closer look at the entertainment? If his rudeness bothered her, she did not show it. Instead, she stepped fully into the room and dismissed the medical drone with a gesture. The machine withdrew without protest. "I am Commander Hana of the Royal Guard," she said formally. "I invoke the right of Calveth. You belong to me now." J1 sat up, wincing at the pain in his ribs. "I belong to nobody." For the first time, he saw something flicker across her face. Surprise, perhaps? Or was it respect? "The Calveth is ancient law," Hana explained, her voice patient as if speaking to a child. "When a warrior shows exceptional courage in defeat, another warrior may claim them. You have been claimed. This is an honor." "I didn't ask for your honor," J1 said, meeting her gaze. "I asked for my freedom." Hana studied him for a long moment. "Freedom is earned in the Empire, not given. You will serve in my personal guard. You will be trained, fed, and housed. In time, if you prove worthy, you may earn your release. And if I refuse, then you return to the fighting pits where you will die within the week. Those are your choices." J1 knew she was right. He had no good options here. But something in him refused to simply submit without protest. It was a stubborn part of his nature, the same part that had kept him fighting when any reasonable person would have given up. "Fine," he said, "but I'm not calling you master or anything like that." Again, that flicker of something in her eyes. "Commander will suffice." 3 weeks passed. J1 found himself living in the military complex where Hana's unit was stationed. He was given a small room, simple but clean, and regular meals that were far better than the slop they fed prisoners in the pits. He was assigned basic duties, mostly carrying equipment and maintaining weapons. Work that kept him busy, but was not particularly difficult. What surprised him most was that Hana seemed genuinely interested in observing him. She would appear at unexpected times, watching him work or asking him questions about Earth and human culture. At first, he thought she was testing him, looking for weaknesses or signs of disloyalty. But gradually, he realized her curiosity was genuine. One evening, as he was cleaning plasma rifles in the armory, Hana entered and sat down across from him. Her posture was more relaxed than usual, 3 arms resting casually, while one idly turned a small knife between her fingers. "Tell me about your world," she said. J-1 looked up, surprised by the direct request. "What do you want to know?" "How did your species survive?" "I have studied your biology. You have no natural armor, no venom, no enhanced strength. Your world should have killed you before you ever developed civilization." J1 set down the rifle he was working on and considered the question. "Earth tried pretty hard to kill us," he admitted. "We had predators that could tear us apart, diseases that wiped out whole populations, weather that could freeze or burn us depending on the season. We weren't the strongest or the fastest or the toughest. Then how?" Hana leaned forward, genuinely interested. "We adapted," J1 said simply. "When we couldn't outrun predators, we made tools. When we couldn't survive the cold, we made fire and clothing. When we couldn't reach food in trees, we made ladders. Every problem we faced, we found a solution. Sometimes the solution was technology. Sometimes it was social cooperation. Sometimes it was just refusing to quit, even when things looked impossible. Hannah was quiet for a moment, processing this. My people believe that strength is the only virtue that matters. We breed for combat capability. We train from birth for war. Weakness is eliminated from our genetic lines. And what do you believe? J1 asked. The question seemed to catch her off guard. I am a warrior of the Empire. I believe what I have been taught. That's not what I asked. Hannah stood abruptly, her posture stiffening. You overstep, human. Remember your place. But as she walked toward the door, she paused and looked back at him. In the arena, when Kroll had you pinned against the wall, why did you not surrender? You could have yielded. The fight would have ended. You would have been injured but alive. J1 smiled slightly. Because humans don't know when to quit. It's probably our worst quality. But it's also what keeps us alive. After she left, J1 sat in the armory thinking. He was beginning to understand something about Hannah and her people. They were strong, yes, but their strength had made them rigid. They followed orders without question, accepted their place in the hierarchy without complaint, and never considered that there might be another way to live. Meanwhile, Hannah returned to her private quarters with her mind in turmoil. The human's words had awakened something in her, a question she had never dared to ask before. Was strength really the only virtue that mattered? She had seen J1 defeat a superior opponent through tactics and willpower. She had seen him refuse to submit even when beaten. These things were not strength in the traditional sense, yet they had proven more effective than pure physical power. She pulled up her personal terminal and began reviewing reports from the frontier worlds. Rebellions were increasing in frequency. Subject species were becoming more resistant to imperial control. The Empire responded with greater force, but it seemed to only make things worse. For the first time in her career, Hannah wondered if the Empire's approach was fundamentally flawed. Over the following days, Hannah began assigning J1 to more complex tasks. She brought him to tactical planning sessions and asked for his input on problems the guard unit was facing. At first, the other Velther warriors were insulted that a human was being consulted. But after J1 suggested a new patrol pattern that reduced ambush incidents by 40%, they began to grudgingly accept his presence. One afternoon, Hannah found J1 in the training yard, working through combat forms by himself. She watched as he practiced strikes and defensive movements, his technique showing the adaptive style he had used in the arena. You fight differently than any warrior I have trained, she observed. J1 paused, wiping sweat from his face. Your warriors are trained to be perfect. Same techniques, same forms, same responses to every situation. It makes you predictable. Predictability creates reliability, Hannah countered. Maybe, J1 acknowledged. But it also creates blind spots. Humans fight messy. We improvise. We do unexpected things because we don't have the luxury of relying on superior strength. Hannah stepped into the training circle. Show me. They sparred for nearly an hour. Hannah held back her full strength, but even at partial power she was far stronger than J1. Yet he managed to land touches on her through creative angles and unexpected movements. He used her own momentum against her, exploited momentary lapses in her guard, and refused to engage in straight exchanges where her superior reach would dominate. When they finally stopped, Hannah was breathing slightly harder than usual. You are frustrating to fight. J1 grinned. Best compliment I've gotten all week. That evening, as they sat together reviewing supply reports, Hannah spoke quietly. I am beginning to understand why your species survived, J1. You do not accept the world as it is. You constantly seek to change it, to improve it, to adapt it to your needs, rather than adapting yourselves to its demands. Is that a bad thing? He asked. I do not know, Hana admitted. It is so different from everything I have been taught, but I cannot deny its effectiveness. She looked at him, her 4 eyes meeting his 2. You have changed how I see things, human. I do not know if I should thank you or curse you for it. J1 smiled. Why not both? Neither of them knew it yet, but their partnership was about to be tested in ways neither could imagine. Orders were coming that would force Hana to choose between her duty to the Empire and the growing understanding that perhaps the Empire itself was wrong. The transport ship descended through the atmosphere of Talgresh, cutting through clouds that glowed orange from the mining operations below. Hana stood at the observation window, her reflection ghostly against the view of the industrial colony. Behind her, her guard unit prepared their equipment with practiced efficiency. J1 stood beside her, also looking out at the world below. What exactly are we supposed to do here? The mining colony has stopped production, Hana explained, her voice flat and professional. The workers refuse to return to their jobs. We are to restore order and ensure the mining operations resume. By any means necessary? J1 asked quietly. Hana did not answer immediately. A month ago, she would have said yes without hesitation. Now, after weeks of conversations with the human, after seeing the world through his eyes, the answer did not come as easily. Those are the orders, she finally said. The colony was built into the side of a massive canyon, with processing facilities clinging to the rock walls like metal parasites. The air was thick with dust and chemical fumes. As Hana's unit marched through the main settlement, J1 noticed something that made his stomach turn. The workers were not soldiers or rebels. They were families. He saw children playing in the narrow streets between industrial buildings, their skin showing signs of chemical burns and respiratory illness. The colony administrator, a Velther official named Vorik, met them at the Central Command building. He was shorter than Hana, but carried himself with the arrogance of someone who had never been challenged. Commander Hana, thank the ancients you are here, Vorik said, clasping 2 of her hands in greeting. These workers have become impossible. They make demands, they complain about conditions, they threaten to contact the Imperial Oversight Committees. What are their demands? Hana asked. Vorik waved 2 hands dismissively. Nonsense, mostly. They want cleaner water, better air filtration, reduced work hours. They claim their children are getting sick from the mining byproducts. Ridiculous, of course. The processing is perfectly safe. J1 looked around the command building. Through the windows, he could see the orange clouds hanging over the colony. Perfectly safe? The air outside could probably eat through metal, given enough time. Vorik's eyes narrowed at the human. Who is this? Why is there a human in your guard unit, Commander? He serves me, Hana said simply. His observations are often useful. Tell me, Administrator Vorik, what is the current health status of the workforce? Within acceptable parameters, Vorik replied quickly. Too quickly. A few minor illnesses, nothing unusual for industrial work. Hana's eyes narrowed slightly. I would like to inspect the medical facilities. For just a moment, Vorik's confident demeanor cracked. That is unnecessary, Commander. You should focus on the rebellious elements. I have identified the ringleaders. A quick execution should. I will inspect the medical facilities. Hana interrupted, her voice carrying the weight of authority. Now, the medical center was understaffed and overwhelmed. J1 followed Hana through wards filled with workers suffering from respiratory diseases, chemical burns, and various toxin-related illnesses. The medical staff looked exhausted and defeated. A human doctor, an older woman named Dr. Yoon, approached them cautiously. You are from the capital? Hana nodded. I am Commander Hana. I need a full report on the health situation here. Dr. Yoon glanced nervously at the guards, then seemed to make a decision. Commander, The workers here are dying. Not quickly, but steadily. The mining operations use toxic chemicals that seep into the water supply. The air filtration systems were supposed to be upgraded 3 years ago, but the budget was redirected. The children are especially vulnerable. I have documented everything, sent reports to the oversight committees, but nothing changes. Why? J1 asked. Why wouldn't the Empire fix these problems? Sick workers are less productive. Dr. Yoon gave him a sad smile. Because Administrator Varric has been embezzling the maintenance and safety budgets for years. He reports the problems as worker laziness and inefficiency rather than health issues. As long as the colony meets its minimum production quotas, nobody from the capital looks too closely. Hana's face remained impassive, but J1 could see the tension in her posture. You have proof of this? I have years of medical records, budget documents that do not match actual expenditures, and testimony from dozens of workers. But what good does it do? I am just a doctor. Vorik is Velthor, connected to powerful families in the capital. Who would believe me? That evening, Hana called a meeting with her unit. Vorik was not invited. The guard warriors stood at attention as their commander paced before them. We have a problem, Hana began. The situation here is not a rebellion. It is a response to criminal negligence and corruption. Administrator Varric has been stealing from the Empire while blaming innocent workers for his own failures. One of the warriors, a veteran named Kresh, spoke carefully. Commander, our orders are to restore production. The methods are at your discretion. Yes, Hana agreed. And I intend to restore production by removing the obstacle preventing it. That obstacle is Varric. The warriors exchanged glances. What Hana was suggesting was technically within her authority, but it was politically dangerous. Varric had connections. Arresting him would create problems for Hana with the capital. J1 stepped forward. Let me talk to the workers first. Let me explain that you are here to help, not to hurt them. If they trust you, they will cooperate. You can restore production without violence. Hana looked at the human for a long moment. You believe they will trust a Velthor commander? After everything the Empire has done to them? No, J1 said honestly. But they might trust a human who serves in your guard. Let me be the bridge. The next day, J1 stood in the main plaza of the colony, surrounded by hundreds of workers from a dozen different species. They watched him with suspicion and fear, expecting another speech about duty and obedience. Instead, J1 told them the truth. I was like you, he said. I was a prisoner. 3 months ago, I was thrown into the fighting pits to die for entertainment. Commander Hana claimed me from that place, gave me a chance to live. She is not like the other Velthor. She cares about justice, about doing what is right, not just what is ordered. The crowd murmured skeptically. One of the workers, a tall insectoid being, called out, Words are easy, human. Why should we believe you? Because I have seen the medical records, J1 replied. I know what Vorik has been doing, and Commander Hana is going to stop him. But she needs your help. She needs testimony, evidence, records. If you help her build the case, she can remove Vorik and get you the resources you actually need. Dr. Yoon stepped forward from the crowd. I will testify. I have everything documented. One by one, other workers came forward. They brought records, testimony, evidence of years of corruption and abuse. J1 collected it all, organized it with the efficiency of someone who had once hauled cargo across star systems and knew the importance of proper documentation. When Vorik learned what was happening, he tried to flee. Hana's guards arrested him at the spaceport. His personal shuttle loaded with credits he had embezzled from the colony budget. Hana confronted him in the command center, all the evidence laid out before him. You have betrayed the Empire, Administrator. You have stolen from Imperial coffers. endangered Imperial assets, and lied in your reports to superior officers. These are capital crimes. Vorik sputtered, his composure completely gone. You cannot do this. I have connections. The High Commander is my uncle. When he hears about this, he will hear that I exposed a traitor and restored production to an essential mining colony. Hannah interrupted coldly, which is exactly what my orders specified. The methods were at my discretion. Vorik was taken into custody. Hannah used her authority to requisition emergency funds for the colony's medical and safety systems. Production resumed within days, this time with proper protections for the workers. That night, as the guard unit prepared to depart, J1 found Hannah standing alone on an observation platform, looking out over the canyon. The air filtration systems were already working better, and for the first time in years, the sky showed hints of actual blue between the orange clouds. You did the right thing, J1 said quietly. Did I? Hannah's voice was troubled. I have arrested a Velthor official based on testimony from subject species. I have prioritized their welfare over Imperial efficiency. My superiors will not be pleased. But the colony is producing again, right? You completed your mission. Yes, technically. Hannah turned to look at him. You did this, human. You made me see them as people rather than assets. You showed me that there was another way. I just helped you see what was already there, J1 said. You made the choice yourself. Hannah was quiet for a long moment. I have served the Empire my entire life. I have fought in 100 battles, crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds. I never questioned my orders. Never wondered if what I was doing was right or wrong. I simply obeyed. And now? Now, I am beginning to wonder if the Empire I serve is worthy of that obedience. She looked down at her hands, all 4 of them. Hands that had killed so many in the Empire's name. What happens when a warrior realizes her cause is unjust? J1 did not have an easy answer for that, but he placed a hand on one of her arms, a gesture of solidarity. You figure it out, one choice at a time. Neither of the summons arrived 2 weeks after they returned from Talgresh. Hannah read the official message 3 times, her face growing more tense with each reading. J1 watched from across the room, recognizing the signs of trouble. What is it? He asked. I have been called to the capital to answer questions about my handling of the Talgresh situation. Hannah set down the message tablet carefully, as if it might explode. This is not good. Can they actually punish you? You completed the mission. The colony is producing again. They can do whatever they want, Hannah said quietly. Vorik's family is influential. They will want revenge for his arrest. I gave them the perfect excuse by prioritizing the welfare of subject species over Velthor authority. Then don't go, J1 said. You don't owe them anything. Hannah looked at him sharply. I am a soldier of the Empire. I do not run from my obligations, even when those obligations might get you killed. Even then, 3 days later, they arrived at the Imperial capital. The planet was called Velthus, a world of gleaming towers and military installations. Everything here was designed to showcase the Empire's power and dominance. Ships filled the sky in perfect formations. Soldiers marched in precise lines through streets wider than necessary. Even the architecture seemed to loom over the visitor, making it clear who was in charge. J1 had insisted on accompanying Hannah despite her protests. If they are going to question you about me, I should be there, he had argued. Now, walking through the capital's intimidating streets, he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. The court building was vast and cold. Hannah and J1 were escorted to a waiting chamber while the tribunal assembled. Through the walls, they could hear the sounds of military drills and weapons testing. The Empire never stopped preparing for war. Whatever happens in there, Hannah said quietly, You do not speak unless directly addressed. You show respect to the tribunal. You do not try to defend me. Hana, promise me, J1. I will not have you executed because you could not control your mouth. He wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes stopped him. I promise. The tribunal chamber was designed to intimidate. The judges sat on an elevated platform, looking down on those who stood before them. 3 high-ranking Velthor officers, each decorated with medals from countless campaigns. And at the center, the High Commander himself. Dragan was older than Hana, but still powerfully built, with scars crossing his scales and eyes that showed no mercy. Commander Hana, Dragan's voice echoed through the chamber. You stand accused of excessive leniency, prioritizing subject species over Velthor authority, and arresting a fellow officer on questionable charges. How do you answer these accusations? Hana stood at attention, her posture perfect. I completed my mission, High Commander. The Talgrash colony has resumed full production. Administrator Vorik was arrested for embezzlement and fraud, crimes I documented thoroughly. You arrested him based on testimony from humans and other inferior species, one of the other judges said. You trusted their word over that of a Velthor administrator. I trusted the evidence. Judge, medical records, financial documents, and physical inspections all confirmed the testimony. Dragan leaned forward. Tell me, Commander, did this human influence your decisions? He gestured toward J1, who stood silently beside Hana. Every eye in the chamber turned to examine him, judging him, finding him wanting. The human serves in my guard, Hana said carefully. He provided observations and assisted with documentation. The decisions were mine alone. Observations. Dragan repeated the word like it tasted bad. You allowed a human prisoner to influence military operations. You showed weakness, Commander. You allowed sentiment to override your duty. I showed justice, Hana said, and J1 heard the steel entering her voice. I exposed corruption and protected Imperial assets. That is my duty. The chamber fell silent. No one spoke to the High Commander that way. The tension grew thick enough to cut. Dragan stood slowly, descending from the platform until he stood face to face with Hana. Your actions on Talgresh have created problems, Commander. Vorik's family demands satisfaction. The subject species grow bold, seeing that one of our own will side with them against us. You have created weakness in the Empire's authority. Or, I have shown that the Empire can be just, Hana countered. That we are more than tyrants ruling through fear. Justice? Dragan's laugh was harsh. The Empire does not survive through justice, Commander. It survives through strength, through fear, through the absolute certainty that to oppose us is to die. He turned and gestured to the guards stationed around the chamber. You have disappointed me, Hana. I trained you myself, raised you to command, and you have been corrupted by human weakness. Dragan pointed at J1. Execute the human. Prove your loyalty to the Empire. Show us that you understand what truly matters. Hana did not move. The entire chamber seemed to hold its breath. No, she said quietly. Dragan's eyes widened. What did you say? I said no, High Commander. Hana's voice grew stronger. J1 is under my protection. He has committed no crime. I will not execute an innocent being to satisfy political theater. You refuse a direct order? Dragan's voice dropped to something dangerous. If the Empire demands I kill an innocent to prove my loyalty, Hana said, then the Empire does not deserve my loyalty. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Guards moved forward, weapons drawing. J1's hand instinctively went to his side, though he carried no weapon. Hana's forearms moved with practiced precision, drawing 2 plasma blades from her belt. Stand down, Commander, Dragan ordered. Your career is over. Your life is over. Surrender now, and I will make your death quick. I have a better idea, Hana said, and her blades hummed to life. Run, human. What happened next was chaos. Hana moved like a storm, her blades cutting through the guards who tried to stop her. J1 ran, just as she ordered, but not away from her. He grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and covered her retreat, firing at anyone who tried to flank her position. They fought their way out of the tribunal chamber and into the streets. Alarms blared across the capital. Military units mobilized to hunt them. Hana and J1 ran through streets and alleys, every Velther hand turned against them. This is insane, J1 shouted as they ducked into a maintenance tunnel. Completely, Hana agreed, and despite everything, she was smiling. But it feels right. They lost their pursuers in the lower levels of the city, where the infrastructure gave way to older, abandoned sections. Here, in the darkness beneath the Empire's gleaming surface, they finally stopped to catch their breath. You threw away everything, J1 said. Your career, your rank, your life. For what? For me? Hana looked at him with all four eyes. For what is right? You showed me that there is more to life than following orders. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stand up and say no. Before J1 could respond, they heard voices in the darkness. They tensed, ready to fight or flee. But the figures that emerged from the shadows were not soldiers. They were rebels. A human man stepped forward, older than J1 with scars marking his face. Commander Hana, we heard what you did in the tribunal. That took guts. Real guts. Who are you? Hana demanded, her blades still ready. Name is Tamin, the man said with a slight smile. I am an engineer, or I was before the Empire captured my ship 5 years ago. Now I build things for people who want to tear the Empire down. He gestured to the group behind him, a mix of species, all former prisoners or refugees. We have been watching you, Commander. We know what you did on Talgresh. We heard about the tribunal. And we want to help. Why? Hana asked suspiciously. T-Min looked at J1. Because humans don't give up. And it looks like you have learned that lesson, Commander. The Empire is strong, but it is not invincible. It has cracks, weaknesses, and people like you who choose justice over obedience. You are the ones who can break it open. Hana slowly lowered her blades. What are you proposing? Come with us, T-Min said. Meet the resistance. See what we are building. And then decide if you want to use all that military training for something that actually matters. Hana looked at J1. In his eyes, she saw understanding and support. Whatever she chose, he would stand beside her. Show me, she said to T-Min. They followed the rebels deeper into the underground, away from the gleaming towers and military might of the Empire's capital. Above them, soldiers searched for the traitor commander and her human companion. But below, in the darkness where the Empire did not look, something new was growing. And Hana, for the first time in her life, felt truly free. The resistance base was hidden in the old industrial sector beneath the capital, a maze of abandoned factories and forgotten tunnels. T-Min led them through passages that had not seen official maintenance in decades. Past equipment rusting in the darkness and walls covered in the graffiti of a dozen dead languages. This place used to be a manufacturing hub, T-Min explained as they walked. Before the Empire moved production off-world to cheaper colonies. Now it is just forgotten. Perfect for us. They entered a large chamber that had once been an assembly floor. Now it was filled with makeshift workstations, communication equipment, and people. Humans, yes, but also other species. J1 recognized Krath, Nethians, even a few Velther who wore no military insignia. An elderly woman approached them. She was human, her hair white and a face lined with age, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. Commander Hana, I am Sujin. I lead this cell of the Resistance. Hannah looked around the base, taking in the crude equipment and mismatched weapons. You plan to overthrow the Empire with this? Not overthrow, Su-Jin corrected gently. Expose. The Empire survives because the subjugated worlds believe resistance is impossible. They believe the Velthor are invincible. We plan to show them the truth. She led them to a central planning table where a holographic map of the capital floated in the air. The Imperial Archive is here, in the central tower. It contains records of everything the Empire has done for the last 3 centuries. Every corrupt deal, every massacre, every lie. If we can access those archives and broadcast the truth across the Empire, the subject worlds will rise up. The archive is the most heavily defended facility in the capital, Hannah said. You would need an army to breach it. Or we need someone who knows how the Imperial military operates, Taemin said. Looking meaningfully at Hannah, someone who can get us inside. Hannah studied the holographic map, her tactical mind already working through the problem. It would be a suicide mission. Even if we got in, we would never get out. Maybe, J1 said quietly. But what is the alternative? Hide down here forever? The Empire will find this place eventually. At least this way, we accomplish something. Hannah looked at him, then at the gathered rebels, then back at the map. She thought about Tal Gresh, about the workers she had helped. She thought about the tribunal, about Dragon's order to execute an innocent man. She thought about everything she had believed about the Empire, and everything she had learned since claiming this stubborn human from the fighting pits. All right, she said. I will help you. But we do this properly. Military precision. No unnecessary risks. Over the next 2 weeks, they planned the operation with obsessive detail. Hannah used her knowledge of Imperial security protocols to identify weaknesses. Taemin built specialized equipment to bypass electronic locks and shields. Su-Jin coordinated with resistance cells on other worlds, preparing them to spread the information once it was broadcast. J1 found himself working with other humans in the resistance, sharing stories of Earth and the worlds they had left behind. There were more humans here than he had expected, all captured in various frontier raids over the years. They had not given up. They had not broken. Instead, they had built something new in the darkness. The night before the operation, J1 found Hannah alone in a side chamber, checking her weapons for the 10th time. He sat down beside her quietly. Nervous? He asked. Terrified, she admitted. I have fought in battles before, but always with the Empire's full resources behind me. Now I fight against it. The odds are not good. Humans face bad odds all the time, J1 said. That is kind of our specialty. Hannah managed to smile. You have taught me much, J1. About courage that has nothing to do with physical strength. About standing up for what is right, even when it costs you everything. About refusing to surrender, even when defeat seems certain. You taught me a few things too, J1 said. About honor. About discipline. About caring for those under your command. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Hannah spoke again, her voice softer. If we survive this, what will you do? I do not know, J1 admitted. Go home, maybe. See Earth again. But first, I think I will help rebuild whatever we are about to break. We make a good team, human. Yes, we do, Commander. The operation began at dawn. Hannah's team, dressed in stolen Imperial Guard uniforms, approached the archive building through the main entrance. Taemin had forged credentials that would get them past the first security checkpoint. After that, they would have to improvise. The plan worked perfectly for exactly 7 minutes. Then an alarm screamed through the building. Red lights flashed. Blast doors began to seal. Somewhere, somehow, they had been betrayed. Move! Hana shouted, abandoning all pretense of stealth. The team ran for the central archive, fighting through security forces that appeared from every corridor. J1 stayed close to Hana, his weapon firing in controlled bursts, just like she had taught him. They reached the archive chamber, a vast room filled with data cores stretching to the ceiling. Taemin immediately began working on the broadcast system, while the others formed a defensive perimeter. How long? Hana demanded. 5 minutes to bypass the encryption. Another 3 to start the broadcast. We do not have 8 minutes, Hana said as enemy fire began pounding their position. The chamber doors exploded inward. Imperial guards poured through, and behind them came Dragan himself. The High Commander was wearing full battle armor, a plasma cannon mounted on one of his arms. Did you really think you could succeed, Hana? Dragan's voice boomed across the chamber. You have become soft, weak. The human has corrupted you. No, Hana said, stepping forward to face him. He opened my eyes, showed me what the Empire really is. A system built on cruelty and lies. And you think revealing those lies will destroy us? Dragan laughed. The Empire does not survive through deception. It survives through power. Absolute, crushing power. He raised the plasma cannon. Surrender now, and I will spare the human. You can die with some dignity. J1 stepped forward before Hana could respond. You are wrong about humans. You see us as weak because we lack your physical strength. But we have something you bred out of yourselves. We care about things beyond our own survival. We fight for ideas, for hope, for each other. That makes us strong in ways you will never understand. He pressed the activation button on Taemin's console. The archives began transmitting, sending decades of Imperial crimes across every communication channel in the Empire. Dragan's face twisted with rage. Kill them. Kill them all. The guards opened fire. Hana threw herself in front of J1, her armor absorbing the plasma bolts meant for him. She fell, smoking holes burned through her chest and side. No. J1 caught her as she collapsed, cradling her in his arms. Around them, the firefight intensified. Taemin and the other rebels fought desperately to buy time for the transmission to spread. Hana's blood, silver and thick, pooled on the floor. She looked up at J1 with fading eyes. Did we succeed? Yes, J1 said, tears streaming down his face. Look, on the monitors around the archive, they could see the transmission spreading. News feeds across the Empire were being interrupted. People on 100 worlds were seeing the truth for the first time. Riots were breaking out. Protests were forming. The Empire's carefully constructed image was crumbling. Good, Hana whispered. That is, good. Her eyes started to close. Ye1 held her tighter. Stay with me, please. We are not done yet. Suddenly, Taemin was beside them. We have to go. Sujin got us an escape route, but we have to move now. Other rebels grabbed Hana, carrying her wounded body while J1 provided covering fire. They retreated through service tunnels as the archive building descended into chaos. Imperial forces were fighting each other now, some remaining loyal to Dragan, while others questioned everything they had just learned. They made it back to the underground base where human doctors, former prisoners with medical training, worked desperately to save Hana's life. For 3 days, she hovered between life and death while J1 refused to leave her side. Above them, the Empire began to fracture. The broadcasts from the archive could not be suppressed. World after world rose in rebellion. Some Velther military units joined the uprisings. Others fought to maintain control. The Empire did not collapse overnight, but everyone could see it was dying. On the 4th day, Hana opened her eyes. She was weak, covered in medical equipment, but alive. You are still here, she said to J1. Where else would I be? Smart human. Over the following months, Hana recovered slowly. The Empire's civil war continued, with no clear victor yet. But on liberated worlds, something new was growing. Councils formed where different species worked together. Laws were written that protected everyone, not just the strong. It was messy and imperfect, but it was hopeful. Hana and J1 became symbols of this new possibility. A Valther commander and a human prisoner who chose to stand together. Their story spread through the resistance networks, giving people hope that cooperation was possible. One evening, standing on a balcony overlooking a freed colony world, they watched the sunset paint the sky in colors of orange and purple. "What happens now?" Hana asked. "We keep fighting," J1 said. "The Empire still controls most of the galaxy. There is a lot of work to do,